Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to my channel. Today we are making something really fun and a little interesting. So recently I have been doing some very different stuff in The Sims 4 and I made a Nintendo Switch based after somebody's artwork, and I mentioned in that video about possibly recreating classic gaming consoles, and I also did a Tetris board using these blocks from Luxury Party Stuff, and made this entire like Tetris themed board, tried to be super accurate with it, and I thought of an idea of kind of combining the two together and making some 8-bit style, very simple art using these blocks yet again, and then combining that with the classic console idea. So this is a very decorative piece in The Sims 4. It's very random, I know that, but it's fun, it's different. You could use it for the outside of like a really fun home or an arcade, or possibly put it inside of a museum, but I really do love the idea of creating some three-dimensional 8-bit art using these blocks from Luxury Party. So I am creating good old classic Mario, very much based after the version from the NES because that is the console I have chosen to recreate today. And we're doing the console, the controller, and then an 8-bit style Mario. So obviously there are a little bit of restrictions in The Sims 4 and there are some things that I had to change just to make this work. So ideally I would have liked to use certain colors to make Mario, but this block only comes in an array of colors, and I did try to recolor it, but that creates two separate problems. One, then I would have made custom content, obviously, and I wanted this to be CC free, and I'm happy to say that in this version it is. And I also really was having a hard time recoloring these cubes, if I'm being completely honest. They have a texture over the top of them that is glowing, and it is really, really nice because obviously they work as lights in The Sims 4, but it makes them very hard to recolor and a little bit beyond my very basic skill level. So that attempt kind of failed, to be postponed and possibly reattempted in a later point in time, in a later video. And as a result, I was missing a few colors for Mario, including a brownish shade and black. And so I decided to change some of the colors around, and I did see some versions that were similar to this where dark blue was used in place of brown and black. The NES was only capable of a certain amount of colors on the screen at one time. I don't know how many that is. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I have seen versions of Mario that are simplified because of the different consoles, how many colors were allowed on screen, what else is going on screen, and things of that nature. So I'm recreating a very, very basic NES version of Mario using, I think, 4 colors, and it really is one for one based off of just some pixel art that I found online. It is commonly used for like perler beads and just basic like pixel art things, Minecraft, things like that. So yeah, that's the first thing that I started with. You'll probably notice that there are already things placed down on this lot, and that is because this is actually the second time I'm doing this video. My footage from the first one was completely shot, and I tried to save it, but decided that it was better to just do the whole thing all over again. And I'm actually glad I did, because the first time I did this, it took me the better part of the day to figure out how I wanted to do the NES, how I wanted to do the controller, how I wanted everything placed, and if I wanted to do like a backdrop or anything like that. But doing it again, kind of already knew how I wanted everything to get done, so it was a lot quicker the second time around, and I just kept everything that was there for base to get the spacing correct so that I didn't change anything compared to the final result. So the thumbnail of this video is actually the first version of this recreation, but they are so similar, if not 100% identical to each other. So yeah, that is the 8-bit Mario. I'd be interested in doing more 8-bit style characters. Obviously, again, I'm very limited as far as colors go, but I feel like I could do like Sonic possibly. And if you guys like this series, if you want me to turn this into a series, I guess, then I've thought of possibly moving down the line, so doing like an SNES next, and then doing an iconic character from SNES, whether it's like Yoshi or Super Mario, that version of Mario, in an 8-bit form, and doing this in a series kind of way. And then I could do like Sega Genesis and do an 8-bit Sonic the Hedgehog and things like that. So let me know if you'd like to see more console recreation. I know it's very random, but at this point in my YouTube career and YouTube channel, that is pretty common, I would say, for most of the stuff that I decide to do. So yeah, very random, but I had a lot of fun with this. It's different and, you know, it's fun. But I will tell you, this NES created a lot of problems for me. There are so many little details that you probably don't ever notice about the NES. One of them being the fact that the bottom part of the console is actually almost at a sloped angle. The wall itself, or the base of it, is sloped. And I did try before in the previous version to do many versions of that, but the game capabilities really capped me on that one. I did ultimately decide that to go for something a little bit more recognizable versus trying to mimic every single detail and then losing what it is that I was trying to do. The other thing I would say is just generally colors. Colors are a little bit weird in The Sims 4 because of shadows, and obviously I'm building outside, so something that appears white to me could obviously appear as a different color depending on what side I put it on. So, if you'll notice, I actually used shelves to create a different texture and a different, like, a little bit of a bump out on the front and on the top of the console. And those are both white furniture pieces, but because of like game mechanics and shading, they do appear a little bit darker than I would have liked, and that's a little bit unfortunate. And I also did, of course, toy with the idea of trying to rewrite the Nintendo logo on the front of that, but again, we don't really have a red light type of item that I would have liked to have been able to use for this console, so I decided to just use that big giant one looking sign for, I think it comes from Die Now or Get to Work or one of those expansion packs. So yeah, definitely kept it a little bit more simple this time around. Tried to, again, make it recognizable but not worry about getting every single little tiny detail and writing every single little thing as maybe I would have in the past. Like when I did Tetris, I obviously recreated the logo, but sometimes you have to put a cap on it and just realize that certain things are not going to be capable in The Sims 4 and take just too much time for what they're worth. So everything is there to represent what is actually there. And I actually have an NES and an SNES Mini, so I have those for reference and definitely used them to recreate the controllers and recreate the actual console and everything. So I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out, and spacing and everything correct. And again, I did toy with the idea of like doing a backdrop on this entire build, or possibly doing some kind of a floor plan, or I don't know. I wanted to incorporate a little bit more to bring it into a backdrop or a scene so it doesn't look like it's outside in the middle of nowhere, but nothing quite worked out. Nothing looked exactly right. So I just decided to settle on these 3 pieces. And I like the idea that you could obviously download this and just use the 3 separate pieces. So if you want the giant NES and the controller, you can have them. If you just want the controller, you can have it. If you just want the 8-bit Mario, you can have that as well. So they're just big, decorative sculpture type of pieces. And yeah, pretty happy with how everything turned out. Both the NES and the controller are foundations with obviously like a wall on top of it. I would have liked to have been able to make the foundation and the wall height the same height, but doing that would have made the console definitely a little bit too big. And I would say out of like the 3 of these items, it's the console itself that strays furthest from the actual real living version. So yeah, you know. And then last but not least, I went into one of the modes to unlock some special career items and used this box of like filing supplies to create a cord into the NES. And yeah, we're gonna be moving into the screenshots. Let me know what you thought of this style video. Would you like to see a series out of this and possibly move on to create more consoles, more 3D standing 8-bit art made out of those cubes? Let me know what you all think. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.